The man had just finished working on the field and was heading home. When he opened the doorknob came off in his hand. He felt that he hadn't applied any force, yet it happened. This was all because of what he did earlier that morning while farming. Just that morning, Wen had finally mastered all the farming skills. However, every skill he learned was something basic, like plowing or planting. But after Wen combined all these skills, something magical happened to his skill panel. His attack value shot up from 70 to 70,000. Wen didn't understand what this meant. He thought what was more important now was that he had to go to the city tomorrow to sell vegetables. The next day, Wen, munching on a carrot he grew, was getting ready to head to the city. Suddenly, something miraculous happened. Wen saw a giant dragon in the sky, and a group of people was fighting it on the ground. Wen, just a farmer, wanted to help but didn't know how. After thinking for a while, Wen figured he could attract the dragon's attention with a carrot. Just as Wen threw the carrot, it exploded on the dragon's body. The dragon hadn't even reacted yet. The people who were fighting the dragon on the ground were stunned. They couldn't figure out who could have killed an S-level forest dragon so easily. After retrieving the carrot, Wen was also stunned. He thought the dragon must have been fake, because Wen spent every day farming and knew nothing about fighting dragons. He chose to continue on to the city to sell his vegetables. When the people who had been fighting the dragon arrived at the spot where it had been slain, all they found were the tracks of Wen's cart. At this point, Wen had already entered the city. Another surprise happened. Wen saw a woman being kidnapped by a man on the street. Without thinking, he rushed to help. To his surprise, Wen easily rescued the woman. Before he could react, the man felt insulted and decided to take the fight seriously. Wen set the woman down and braced himself for the attack. The man charged at Wen, but his attack was easily dodged. Wen counterattacked and slammed the man hard to the ground. The soldiers quickly came and apprehended him. Although Wen's movements seemed effortless, he was actually quite nervous inside. It was only when Wen was attacked that he realized he had a skill to see through his opponent's moves. The woman, Majisu, was grateful for Wen's help, but she hadn't asked for his name yet. Wen left without saying a word. Majisu was left in shock. Soon, Wen arrived at the market, where he was going to sell his vegetables. If he didn't hurry, he would miss the chance to water his crops when he got home. He quickly arrived at the city gates, but this time the soldiers stopped him. Wen didn't know what he had done wrong. At that moment, Majisu appeared and explained that she was the princess of the capital. She wanted to invite Wen to her palace to help, offering him a great sum of money. However, Wen didn't care about money. He refused immediately, explaining that he needed to go home to water his crops. Majisu understood and promised that if Wen joined the palace, she would give him 10,000 acres of land to farm. Wen hesitated. He wondered why Majisu was so eager for him to come. Majisu explained that the person Wen had just defeated had an average power level of 500. Wen was intrigued. Majisu explained that the average person has a power level of 50, adventurers have 130, knight captains have 600, and legendary heroes have 1000. Majisu was curious about Wen's power level, but Wen didn't want to reveal it. He was too afraid to tell her. Just then, 3 men walked up to the gate. The soldiers recognized them and were curious about what they were holding. They claimed these were treasures dropped by the S-level forest dragon, but they didn't know who had killed it. All they knew was that a cart had passed by at the time. At this point, Majisu suddenly thought of Wen, but he had already left. She refused to give up and decided to track him down. However, she received bad news. Many monsters were approaching the capital, and various races of monsters were closing in. Someone informed the king that the Demon Legion's commander was leading the attack, now that the hero was no longer around. There were suggestions to evacuate the king and the princess immediately. The ministers agreed, and that evening, they mounted horses and left, but they didn't